Hi there, my name is Jeanette. I am the senior penguin keeper at the Two Oceans Aquarium.
Hi everybody, so my name is Tiffany Johnson and I am one of the penguin keepers here at the Two Oceans Aquarium.
Hi guys, my name is Amy Stumbles. I'm one of the penguin keepers here at the Two Oceans Aquarium.
And my journey at the aquarium started way back in 2004. So just prior to 2004, when I was a child at the age of 12, I came to the aquarium and I watched the penguin feed, and on my birthday I said to my mom, I want to be that woman one day. So after 2004, I attended a young biology course at the aquarium through my school. I started volunteering here a couple of times and eventually got to be part of the aquarium family. Eventually, over time, a position came up at the aquarium to be a penguin keeper, and that was one of my dream jobs. So I applied to do that, and lo and behold, I did get the opportunity to become the animal keeper or the penguin keeper at the Two Oceans Aquarium.
How I came to be here is I studied biodiversity and conservation biology at UWC from 2016 until 2020. So 2020 was the year that I did my honors, and my research project was actually based on African penguins. So that's kind of how the passion started. And then after that, I actually did an internship at a seabird rehabilitation center, working with penguins, and that is where my passion for them just grew. I just fell in love with how resilient they are and also how cute they are. You can't look at a penguin and say they're not cute. And then in 2022, I think it was, I got a casual position at the Two Oceans Aquarium as a penguin keeper. And then about a year later, I got a permanent job, which is fantastic. I'm absolutely loving it. I love to get to work with these guys every day. They're such interesting characters. They all have their own little personalities and their own characteristics, and it's really cool to actually see that and to also develop your relationship with them.
I've always had a love for animals since growing up. I grew up going to the Kruger Park all the time, and I just found a passion for the bush. Growing up as a kid, I also had my own budgies for 11 years. And so I really have a passion for birds. My family are also a family of keen bird watchers, and so it definitely runs in the family. As soon as I finished my studies, I relocated to the Western Cape, and I started to work at Sandcob. I got a volunteering position for 6 months. So Sandcob is more of a hospital, and we're not really allowed to interact with the chicks because we want to rewild them. Whereas our penguins here at the Two Oceans Aquarium have been here for most of their lives, and they get treated very well. However, they're not going to be put back into the wild because they may have picked up diseases or bacteria or things that we can treat here, but it might be deadly to their natural population. And we don't want to wipe out their entire species. So they get lots of love and care here, and they get really well looked after, they get really well fed, and they get lots of attention and love from all of the visitors that come past. And we really hope that with the future for our chicks, that they will add to this ever-increasing population and create hope and a future for our African penguins.
So these are our African penguin chicks. This over here is Echo. Say hello, Echo. And then that over there, standing by herself, you can't see her now, but she will make her way this way. That is Ember. So they are actually siblings. So they are from the same biological parents, Alan and Neptune. And Ember, that's her. I don't know if you can hear, but that's her chirping in the background. So she was actually raised by the biological parents for the first month of her life. Her egg was also incubated by them. And then Echo over here, who's very interested in the fish. Echo was actually adopted by another couple, Aya and Flippy. So unfortunately, Aya and Flippy, they were not able to have their own fertile egg. So we gave them the second egg in Alan and Neptune's clutch. And usually what actually happens is the parents, they give most of their focus to the first chick that hatches. So to ensure that both of them had a full and happy life, we split them up. And it worked out really well. And Echo's parents, Aya and Flippy, Here Echo is. They were actually first-time parents, so it was very exciting to see them also learning how to look after a baby, and they did a great job, obviously, as you can see. And the effect of parents on chicks, it's actually quite prominent, and we've seen it with both of them. So despite them being from the same parents, so technically they've got the same genes, we actually see the nature versus nurture with them. So for example, Ember's parents, Alan and Neptune, they are a lot more tame. So whenever we needed to remove her from the nest, to weigh her or anything like that, Alan and Neptune, they wouldn't really fight us as much. Whereas Echo's parents, Aya and Slippy, they were a lot more aggressive. So whenever we would remove Echo from the nest, Aya and Flippy would get quite mad and they would show a lot more aggression. And when we actually removed Ember from the beach, about a month after she was hatched, she was a lot more calm towards humans from the get-go, whereas Echo, we actually saw that they were a lot more aggressive towards us. And that's obviously a behavior that they learned from their parents, which is quite cool to see.
Before penguins lay their eggs, what they do is they build their nest. Behind me, you can see we have our nest spaces for our African penguins. Naturally, in the wild, penguins make their nests out of guano. This is penguin poop, and it smells quite fishy, which is why we don't let them do that here, and we provide fiberglass nests for them to nest in. Before laying their eggs, what they'll do is find a suitable nesting spot, which is preferable to them, and they start becoming very territorial and very protective of their space. They will run around the beach collecting nesting material. In the wild, that would be things like twigs, leaves, sticks, anything that they can get their beaks on. Here, we provide them with things like lavender, rosemary, thyme, just to help this beach smell a bit better, because their guano can get a bit fishy, and that attracts flies and creates an unwanted and very unpleasant smell, which is why they have the fiberglass nests. Once the penguins have found a suitable nest space, what they start to do is kit out their nest. They do this by digging up the sand to make a neat little burrow in order to protect their eggs. This is so that their eggs don't go rolling around the nest. Normally, in the wild, the penguins use their guano as a protection from the heat and from other climate factors as well as other predators. Here, they are in a completely controlled environment, and so these factors don't necessarily affect them as much. But they still get very territorial and very protective over their nest spaces, and if anybody comes too close, they will often get kicked out abruptly. Once the eggs have been laid, it takes about 38 to 40 days for them to hatch. During this process, the penguins take turns to look after their eggs, where one parent will go out and find food and come back and bring it to the other parent who is keeping the eggs nice and warm. And then they take turns to switch out to go and cool down to swim and come back to look after their eggs. They are very, very protective parents and will not let their eggs out of sight until the eggs hatch. Even when this happens, they still take turns to switch out and take their parental duties very seriously. Normally, penguins lay 2 eggs per clutch, and they can lay up to 2 clutches a year. This means approximately 4 eggs a year. When the chicks hatch, they come out all fluffy and soft and very small and blind and are completely dependent on their parents. So, to protect their own chicks, the parents will dig deeper and deeper into the back of their nests to hide their chicks as they grow. This is to shelter the chicks and to try and hide them away from predators and other penguins who might get a bit too curious and come too close to their nests. Like I said, penguins are quite territorial, and the parents of other chicks might often actually try to traumatize and even kill chicks of another nest. So what happens is the parents will go out, one of them at a time, to get some food, and they come back to their nest where they regurgitate it in a yummy smoothie for their chicks. and we're here on the African black-footed penguin beach at the Two Oceans Aquarium, and as you can see, I've got all my buddies with me. And what I've just done is taken the first stage life cycle from Alan and Neptune. This is their egg, and they are actually the parents of our two chicks, Ember and Echo. So today I'm going to be doing an important process called candling to see if there is any development in this egg, which is their second batch for the year. So you can follow me. This involves shining a really bright light through the egg. As you can see, I've got my really bright torch here, and I'm going to be shining this through the egg. We need a dark space to cover it so that we can see perfectly what's inside. If this egg is fertile, what we will start to see is a little red dot developing. This is the beginning of the embryo. The first thing to develop is the heart, and it's what I'm going to be looking for now. So I've just had a look inside this egg, and as far as I can see, there is no development. This means that the egg was not fertilized, unfortunately, but it's a natural occurrence with some of our birds here, especially considering that most of our population is very geriatric and most of them are too old. A lot of the time, 90% of the eggs aren't actually fertile. But what you would see in an egg that is developing is it starts off as a little red dot, which is the beginning of the heart that is developing in the embryo. And eventually these finger-like projections start sticking out around the egg. These are the veins which transport nutrients from the yolk and the surrounding egg white to the embryo in order to help it to grow. Eventually, when the embryo becomes bigger and as it develops more and its organs start to form, the egg will start to go black inside. This is just going dark when you shine a light through it, and you won't be able to see much that's happening because the chick is growing bigger until eventually it becomes a complete dark space where you cannot see anything anymore, and this is when that you know that the chick is about to hatch. There are 5 stages in a penguin life cycle. First is the egg. Second of all is the hatchling, which comes out all soft and fluffy and brown and blind and is completely dependent on their parents. And thirdly, when it grows up a little bit, it becomes a chick with soft, down, fluffy feathers. Tiffany will speak more about the next coming life stages when we move to the chicks Ember and Echo.
Okay, so when looking at Ember and Echo, the easiest way to tell them apart is by looking at their spots, just like with our adult birds. So you can see that they've lost most of their down feathers, so now you can see the waterproof feathers have come through, and on the feathers you'll see their spots. So Echo, if you look at his hips, he's got 2 black spots. 2 black spots on his hips. Can you just show them your spots, please? I don't know if you can see that one, but they are there. So that's how we're able to tell Echo apart. And then Ember, you'll see that she doesn't really have any spots on her legs, and she's got a few spots in the middle of her belly. So that's how we know the difference between the two of them. So at the moment, they are currently in the 4th stage of the penguin life cycle. And that would be the juvenile phase. So the juvenile phase is split into 2 kind of subcategories. The first one would be the blue. So that's almost like toddler maybe, or not a toddler, I suppose a child. And if you look at, can I show them your feathers? If you look at the back over here, you'll see yes. Okay, can I just turn your butt around? If you see these feathers over here, okay, Ember also wants to show you. She's lost quite a lot. They're blue. They look blue, so that's why they're called blue. And then as they get older, these feathers start to turn brown, and then they get bigger, obviously, and that's when they become a juvenile or a teenager. And then after that, then they'll go through their first molt. And after their first molt, that's when they'll grow in their first set of adult feathers. And then they'll look like our African penguins that we have in the ecosystem. Yeah? Hi. Yes, man. Hello. Okay, so the reason why we actually remove them from the beach and we've been hand rearing them ourselves is because we want them to become habituated towards humans, exactly how you see now. And there's lots of benefits for that. The main one, and which I guess also the other reasons stem from, is trust. So we want them to trust us because if they trust us, it's going to make their lives a lot less stressful. So for example, we hand feed them. So if they trust us, they're going to eat from us a lot easier. Also, if they have any medical procedures that need to take place or any vet checks that need to happen, we're the ones that are going to be handling them. So if they trust us and they know that, okay, nothing you're going to do is with the intention of harming me, they're going to be a lot more calm in those situations. Okay, so circling back to hand feeding, as you can hear, our babies are very hungry. So hand feeding, it is exactly how it sounds. We are feeding the birds from our hands. There are lots of different methods that this branches into. So the most simple one is where we literally feed them with our hands, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that now. So yeah, this is Echo. Echo is pretty good at hand feeding already. There we go. So Ember's still learning. Okay, Ember's still learning how to hand feed. So for now, I'm just going to be feeding Echo. Yeah, so all of our birds, our adult African penguins as well, they get hand fed. So this is the most simple method, is literally putting the fish in their mouth and then they swallow it. Another method that some of our birds like is they will take the fish out of our hand and they will walk away with it and then they'll eat it themselves. Another one is they want us to actually throw the fish in the water. They will dive and then they will catch it themselves. And then another one would be, if we throw the fish kind of onto the ground just before the water's edge, some of the birds like to pick it up and they'll eat it like that. And then the last one, which is quite a cool one to actually watch, is some of the birds, they will actually catch the fish. So we throw the fish at them and then they catch it in the air and then they eat it. Yeah, so the reason why we hand feed, or there are a few reasons. The first one is to make sure that all of the birds are eating. So when we hand feed everybody, we're watching to see who's eating and then we can record that. It's very important to know who's eating, who's not eating. One of the things you first notice when a bird becomes sick is a change in their appetite. This is number 3. The most Echo has eaten in a row is 5 fish. And you might be wondering, where are they putting all of that fish? So penguins actually have a very strong digestive system and they start to digest the food as soon as they eat it. And they also compress their bodies, which like squashes the fish. So you'll see it especially when birds, they eat quite a lot. What they do is they kind of like squeeze their body into their body. And then that helps to compact the fish. So that's how they're able to eat quite a lot. Oh, big stretch. Okay, so I'm going to feed Ember now. So like I said, Ember is still learning how to eat from our hand. So what we do is we get we get it nice and comfortable between our legs. And then we try to see if she'll open her mouth herself. I'm saying she, but we don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet. I think we're all hoping that Ember's a girl and Echo's a boy, because that's what we've all been saying. Now, I'm just going to open up Ember's mouth. Oh, she said no. So we'll try again. Come, girlie. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, I'll just do one for her now. And they do get fed 4 times a day at the moment. So if they don't eat that much at one feed, it's nothing to stress about. And we also weigh them every day. So we are keeping an eye on their weights and making sure that they are at the right weights. So if you guys look behind me, you'll see we've got our African penguins, our adult birds. So this would be the 5th and final stage of the penguin life cycle. The adult phase, like I said. And it's characterized by the iconic black and white feathers. As you can see, they're little tuxedos. And also they've all got the spots on their chests and their bellies, and that's actually how we're able to identify our birds. So each bird's spot pattern is different to the next, and we study the spot patterns, and yeah, that's basically how we can identify them. So yeah, all of their feathers that they've got now, just like in their juvenile stage, these would be their waterproof feathers. And every year, when they go through the annual molt, they lose all of the waterproof feathers and they all grow back, and their spot patterns actually grow back the exact same every year. There has been one change. If you can see this bird over here with the white spots on his back, that's Chuck. So he didn't always have those spots on his back. That just grew in 1 year after his molt. So I guess they do kind of develop, but the black spots on their chest and their bellies, that will stay the same.
With the colony at the Two Oceans Aquarium, we try our best to make sure that these birds continue their ambassador species for their generation and for our future generation. So when we have chicks coming onto the penguin exhibit, or when we have chicks that hatch out at the Two Oceans Aquarium, these birds provide us with more education, but also with more research projects that we can also educate other people with. Now, about 100 years ago, we had 1.5 million of these birds, and currently the data shows that there are less than 20,000 African penguins left out in the wild. This number is devastating because it's the only African penguin species found on the African continent. Hence me saying the word African, because it's the only penguin found in the southern hemisphere or right along our coastline. Now, the Two Oceans Aquarium has a great campaign called Not on Our Watch, or #Now, which calls to the action of the awareness about the African black-footed penguin. Right now, the birds are at its plight and they are suffering out in the wild for survival of the fittest, but also because there's no food in the ocean. We as humans are consuming too much food from the ocean, and we're taking on a lot of their resources for food, like poachers, also known as sardines. And if we continuously take out too much food for our benefit, the penguins will be suffering. And in the end, the birds suffer from starvation. They end up swimming into predatory waters further out into the wild, leaving their chicks behind, and that causes a knock-on effect not only for the adult birds but for the chicks as well. The African penguin is listed as critically endangered and will go into extinction by 2035. So we need all your help to help us protect the African penguin. And logging onto our website called Not on Our Watch, you can help us write letters to the minister, but also help all our visitors that come to South Africa to see the African penguin, how to protect and love the species and keep them alive for our future generation.